Hello, sixth grade students. Here we are with our book Granted, and we are at a place where Ophelia is embarking on her experience to grant a wish for a person out in the world who would like a purple bicycle because hers was stolen. We are on chapter 12, page 72. When Ophelia first emerged, the fairy who found her, who lifted her from the petals of the delphinium flower she was wrapped in and cradled her in his arms, that fairy hummed to her all the way back into the haven. His name was Paulo. Paulo Hydrangea Speechless. Like all fairy last names, Paulo's was befitting his personality. Most fairies learn to speak fluently at a startlingly young age, before their first season has passed. But Paulo was unusually quiet as a young fairy and grew up to be just as soft-spoken as an adult, seldom uttering more than a sentence, and that only when necessary. He would hum, however, often making up new melodies on the spot, his voice bright as birdsong. When he drew Ophelia out of the delicate flower folds and into the wide new world, he was humming a tune that had been stuck in his head the whole long journey from the haven. It was simple and cheerful, and she smiled at the bouncy refrain. Paulo's humming was the only thing about her founding day that Ophelia remembered clearly. That his hair was blue like hers, but lighter like the sky. Ophelia hummed that same tune nervously to herself as she stood in the ready room. Charlie whistled in harmony alongside her, smiling broadly, though she could tell he was just as nervous as she was. She mentally marched through her checklist as she buttoned up her pink flight suit. Not quite the glaring fuchsia of Charlie's eyes, but a nice flamingo color at least. She really would look like a fat pink worm flying through the air. She thought of the peregrine falcon's top speed again and fumbled with her belt. "You have everything?" Charlie asked, interrupting her in the middle of her list. She shushed him. Knife, check. Twine, check. Goggles, check. "And you've got the route memorized." She gave him a look, hoping that would do for an answer. "Bandages, check. Ointment, check. Sticky strips, check. And you packed a snack?" Thea whirled around. "Bless the heavens. Do you ever shut up?" "Yes, I packed a snack," she told him. Then double checked to make sure the yellow M&M, a gift from Charlie, in fact, on her last founding day, was still in her pack. It was a nice satchel, roomy canvas with reinforced straps and plenty of small pockets on the outside to hide trinkets and tools. It had been a gift from Speechless on his passing. They hadn't been that close. Founders were known to nurture hundreds of fairies in their lifetimes, and when you have that many charges, it's hard to get attached to anyone for too long. But before his spirit returned to nature, he did see fit to give Ophelia something, his bag, which he'd used for 20 seasons. He also told her how proud he was of the fine fairy she'd become. It was more words than he'd spoken to her in a year. She checked the bag now to make sure it had everything else she needed. A reed whistle for startling wild animals, a fish hook corked to prevent it from jabbing her in the leg mid-flight. The bag was bulging. Charlie must have noticed her straining to lift it. "Maybe you overpacked? Or maybe I'm just being thorough," she teased. Charlie helped her with the back of the thermal flight suit, too tricky to get it buttoned around the wings by yourself. If only she had real feathers or fur to help keep her warm. It looks good on you, he said. Pink is definitely your color. She smirked at him and slung the satchel across her shoulder, tying it again to her waist with extra twine so it wouldn't dangle while she flew. Charlie noticed her fingers fumbling with the knot. It will be all right, he said. Ophelia snorted. A talk ago, you were telling me that the world outside was a giant fairy death trap. Now you're telling me not to worry? She clipped the 2 canisters of Arnold Rawleye's magic knockout spray to her belt. Make up your mind. Am I coming back alive or not? Charlie's face went white. Don't say that. Don't even think it. He looked so serious all of a sudden, it surprised her. I'm kidding, she said, smirking. Seriously, Chuck, lighten up. And please don't call me that. Okay, Charles, you don't need to pretend to be worried, she said. I know you're just mad that it's me and not you. I'm not jealous. It should be you, Charlie said. You deserve it. You're the brightest, quickest, most resourceful fairy I know. There's a reason Squint chose you over me. He paused, glancing down at the untied boots. Probably more than anyone. Now she felt bad for bringing it up, hinting at how long it had been since he'd stepped foot outside the haven. You'll get back out there someday, Ophelia assured him. Yeah, I wouldn't bet on that, he murmured. He followed her through the ready room onto the platform at the top of Grant Tower, where the Guild's launch operations spread out beneath the bright late morning sun. Most everyone up there was a techie, the newest guild in the haven. Fairies trained to operate the increasingly complex contraptions the boys downstairs rigged up. Several fairies sat on a nearby branch surrounded by equipment hacked and mashed together from bits and pieces brought back by the scavengers. Cracked screens, long metal antennas nearly bent in half, wires running this way and that, some of them snaking their way to a bank of solar panels soaking up nature's #1 source of free energy. Several fairies sat on wooden stools with headphones made of walnut husk, monitoring radio signals. It wasn't the most high-tech operation Ophelia knew. Supposedly, some of the fairies over in Europe were on the verge of hijacking a satellite. But you start relying too much on gadgets and gizmos, and you lose sight of the magic. Maybe that was part of the problem. Squint was standing at the launch platform pacing. He took one look at her and frowned. Pink? He glared at Charlie, or glared as much as was possible through those narrow slits of his. All her idea, Charlie said, pointing. Just so long as you don't get caught, shot, or eaten, I suppose it makes no difference. That was Squint for you, Ophelia thought, a fountain of cheer. The head of the Granters Guild handed her a baby green acorn, no bigger than her thumb. At least it looked like an acorn. Ophelia knew better. She could see where the geeks downstairs had carved out the insides and replaced them with all kinds of wiry metal bits. The acorn top had been replaced with a wooden button. She knew exactly what it was for. This was her locator, her SOS, her just-in-case device. If you should get into trouble, and I mean a real dust kicker, not just some minor inconvenience, Squint instructed, click that button. It will activate the distress signal, and hopefully we will be able to pinpoint your location. Though keep in mind, it will take a while to get a rescue team out to you. It won't be necessary, Ophelia insisted. She had no intention of having to be rescued. Then again, who plans on getting rescued? Don't eat that, Charlie told her. The wires will get stuck to your teeth. Ophelia groaned and tucked the acorn into the only empty pocket left in her satchel. She wondered if Charlie had ever had to press the button. His last missions hadn't gone well, though he never gave her the details, no matter how hard she pressed. She knew only that the wish had been granted. Because no wish had ever gone ungranted under Squint's watch. And here's this. Ophelia watched Squint remove a small glass vial from his pocket, attached to a length of triple braided twine. Ophelia took the diamond-shaped vial gingerly and held it between two fingers, letting the light catch it. She could see the iridescent motes of pure fairy magic swirling inside, like miniature starlight. She sensed the promise it contained, made by the great tree, waiting to be fulfilled. This wasn't her first encounter with fairy dust, but it was the first time she'd ever been entrusted with it. You understand what happens if you should lose this. Squint's expression was as serious as a cemetery. Ophelia nodded. 100% pure fairy dust was not to be trifled with, even the little bit she was given. Lose this vial, and it was mission failure. Instant abort. That's why it didn't go into her bag or her pocket. She handed it to Charlie, who tied it around her neck. She gave the twine a firm tug just to be sure, then tucked the vial inside her suit and even under the collar of her uniform so that it lay right against her heart. She wanted to feel it there at all times. All right, time for the camo. Squint stood back, and two techies, both with striking orange hair, approached and stood on either side of her. They each held glass flask with bulbous sprayers at the top, much like the spritzers Celia sniffs one of Ophelia's neighbors bottled her noxious flowery perfumes in. The liquid inside the flask was completely clear, which was funny only when you considered what it was about to do to her. "Soak her good, boys," Squint said. Ophelia raised her arms and shut her eyes tight. The two orange-haired fairies proceeded to douse Ophelia in a fine mist, coating every inch of her from feet to hands to face. They sprayed everywhere, making her purse her lips and hold her breath, though the residue still lingered. The camo warmed all the way through the fabric and seeped into her skin, making it tingle. This wasn't the first time she'd been camouflaged. Her training exercises at the academy had taken her outside the haven before, but she forgot how bitter it tasted until she unwittingly licked her lips. Rolly should work on adding some peppermint to this, she spat. "It's not designed to taste good, Fidget," Squint told her. "It's designed to keep you alive. That's enough camo to last until the close of the day, which gives you about 12 rocks to complete your mission. After that, it's going to wear off, and humans will see you for who you really are." "And nobody wants that," Charlie said. Ophelia ignored him. She wasn't concerned about the time she wouldn't need until the end of the day. 3 rocks there, 1 talk max to locate. 3 talks there, 1 talk max to locate and grant the wish. 3 talks back. Should be home in time to celebrate the late evening meal of candied apples and corn cakes and the bottle of dandelion wine that she'd been saving for a special occasion. For this exact occasion. She could feel the camo warming behind her ears. It was fairy dust again, heavily diluted, but she could still feel the magic working, making her sweat. Or maybe that was just nerves. One of the fairies came up to Squint to deliver a weather report. "Scouts say it's a little cloudy between here and Kettering, sir, but no rain in sight." No rain, smooth flying, nothing at all to be nervous about. Squint put his hands on Ophelia's shoulders, his face close enough that she could actually make out the color of his eyes between the narrows. She expected them to be pink, like an oleander, the flower he was found in, but instead they were silver to match his hair. "The wish is active, so it should be easy to track. I don't have to remind you what's at stake. Find the coin and do what you've been trained to do, and by tomorrow at this time, you will have preserved the haven for yet another day, and Cassera Quinn will be riding a shiny new purple bicycle up and down her block. Cassera, right. Thea had momentarily forgotten about her. How odd. She was so focused on the flight and the ritual, anticipating everything that could possibly go wrong, that she momentarily blanked on who the wish was for. She tried to picture it, a 13-year-old girl standing by the fountain, reaching into her pocket almost absent-mindedly and finding a nickel there, plunking it into the water with a shrug, because why not? What could it hurt? And make it purple. Althea would make it perfect. I won't let you down, sir. Squint nodded, satisfied, and turned to consult the techies on the other upcoming launches. There were 11 other wishes being granted after all. Charlie grabbed Althea by her elbow and pulled her gently aside. So listen, whatever happens out there, don't do anything foolish. Stay focused. Stick to your training. Remember what this is all about. I'm going to stop there, and tomorrow we'll begin on page 81 and finish up the chapter, and hopefully finish chapter 13 as well, maybe 13 and 14. Thanks so much, 6th grade students. Have a great evening. Take care.